As soon as my husband found out he was coming into an inheritance, he announced, "Pack your bags. I'm a rich man now." He kicked me out the door and filed for divorce. I signed everything calmly, but the moment the lawyer read the will, he dropped to his knees in front of me. Welcome to the Twists of Destiny channel. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know. We hope you enjoy listening to this captivating story. Keziah woke up to the sound of her alarm at 5:30 a.m. It was still pitch black outside. Only the streetlights cast a dim glow over the snow-covered courtyard. She stretched, trying not to wake Tavarius, and carefully slipped out from under the quilt. The cold immediately stung her bare feet. The radiators in their drafty two-bedroom apartment on the south side were barely putting out any heat. In the bathroom, Keziah looked at her reflection in the mirror. 32 years old, but she looked every bit of 40. Dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide anymore. The first fine lines around her mouth. Hair that desperately needed a touch-up and a fresh braid. But she had neither the time nor the money for the salon. She ran a hand over her face, splashed it with ice-cold water, and started getting ready for work. "You up early again?" Tavarius's grumpy voice drifted from the bedroom. "I have to be at work by 8, Tav," Keziah answered softly, pulling on an old-pilled sweater. "Go back to sleep." "How am I supposed to rest with you making all that racket at the crack of dawn?" he grumbled, turning his face to the wall. Keziah bit her lip. Back in the day, 5 years ago, when they first moved in together, Tavarius used to wake up with her. He'd send her off with a kiss, tell her she was the finest woman in the world. He'd brew her coffee while she got ready, kiss the top of her head, and promise to have dinner ready by the time she got home. But now every move she made just seemed to get on his nerves. In the kitchen, she quickly made instant coffee and ate a slice of toast with cheese while standing by the windowsill. There was never time for a proper breakfast. By 7:00 a.m., she was already walking out the door to catch the bus to the community health clinic where she worked as a front desk administrator. The job was tedious and monotonous, answering phones, scheduling patients, dealing with insurance complaints and attitudes. The pay wasn't much, about $2,800 a month, but it was steady. And right now, it was the only real money coming into the household. Tavarius worked, well, Keziah didn't even know what to call it. He'd been trying to launch his own empire for 3 years now. First, it was an online supplement store, then a consulting agency, then a computer repair service. Nothing ever stuck. The money they tried to save for a vacation, for a new fridge, for renovations, it all went into his next big project. And there were never any results. The most he brought in was maybe $500 or $600 a month. And that wasn't even every month. "I'm building a future," he would say every time Keziah timidly asked if maybe he should get a regular 9 to 5. "Just temporarily. You just don't understand how business works, Keziah. You gotta invest. You gotta have patience. Look at Jay-Z. Look at the big moguls. They all took risks." And Keziah endured. She took on a second job in the evenings. After the clinic, she did remote bookkeeping for small businesses. She sat at the computer until midnight, checking other people's invoices and balancing ledgers just to make ends meet by the end of the month, to pay the rent, the light bill, the internet, buy groceries, and ensure Tavares had capital for his next genius idea. That gig brought in another $2,500 or $2,000, depending on the client load. Sometimes more, if she was lucky. The bus was late and Keziah barely made it to the start of her shift. The whole day flew by in a blur of chaos. Endless ringing phones, upset patients, demanding doctors. By lunch, she had a splitting headache, but it was too early to go home. After work, she had to stop by the grocery store, pick up food for dinner, and then sit down at the computer. She had a rush order pending, a financial report due by tomorrow evening. She got home around 9:00 p.m. Her arms ached from the heavy grocery bags. Her feet were throbbing after being on them all day. Tavares was sitting on the sofa with his laptop scrolling through something intently. In the kitchen, dirty dishes from lunch were piled in the sink. Crumbs were scattered on the table, along with an empty tea mug and a torn-open package of cookies. Keziah silently took off her coat, went into the kitchen, and started washing the dishes. "Kez, you could at least take a breath first." Tavares threw out without looking up from his screen. "You always doing too much." "If I don't wash them, who will?" she answered wearily, soaping up a plate. "Man, whatever. Ideally, you wash them later. The house ain't gonna crumble in one night." Keziah didn't answer. It was useless. They used to cook dinner together, clean up together, make plans for the weekend together. He used to spend entire Saturdays helping her reorganize the closet or paint the walls. Now she felt like a maid in her own home. She finished the dishes, wiped the table, put the groceries in the fridge, then heated up some leftover soup for herself and sat down. Tavares walked into the kitchen, poured himself some tea from the kettle she had boiled that morning, grabbed an apple from the bowl and went back to the sofa. Tavares walked into the kitchen, poured himself some tea from the kettle she had boiled that morning, grabbed an apple from the bowl and went back to the sofa. He didn't ask how her day went. He didn't ask if she'd eaten. The only sound in the apartment was the faint hum of the refrigerator, the tapping of his fingers on the laptop keys, and the occasional crunch of his apple. Keziah finished her soup in silence, rinsed the bowl, and glanced at the clock. 9:40 p.m. She still had a report to finish. She sat down at the small desk wedged between the window and the bookshelf, opened her laptop, and began to type. Her eyes burned. Each number on the spreadsheet seemed to blur into the next, but she forced herself to focus. At 10:30 p.m., Tavares finally broke the silence. "Kez," he said slowly, eyes still glued to the screen. "Quick question." She kept typing. "How much do we got saved?" he asked. "Total, between your little accounts." Keziah's fingers hovered over the keys. "Our savings?" she clarified. "Yeah." He turned the laptop toward himself, scrolling. "The emergency fund, that little vacation fund you got. What's the total?" She frowned. "Why?" she asked. "You want to buy something?" He leaned back against the sofa, one arm thrown over the backrest. "I'm just planning," he said casually. "There's this opportunity. My boy Rico got a line on a crypto project early stage. He knows the developer, says we can get in before it explodes. 10x, maybe 20x our money, easy. We put in, say, $8,000 now, we could be sitting on 80 by summer." Keziah's stomach twisted. "We barely have 11,000 in total," she said quietly. "That's our cushion if I lose a client or if something happens with the job or the car or something's always happening in your head," he cut in with a sigh. "See, that's the problem. You think too small. You're comfortable lugging groceries in the snow for $2,800 a month. Like that's a life." Heat crept up her neck. "It's what's paying our rent," she said, "and the light bill, and the internet, and—" "Temporarily," he snapped. "I told you this. All this is temporary. You think Jay-Z got rich clipping coupons and worrying about light bills?" He shook his head in disgust. "Nah," he went on. "He took risks. He bet on himself. That's what I'm trying to do. But every time I bring you an idea, you act like I'm asking to burn the house down." "I'm not asking you to stop dreaming," she said softly. "I'm asking you not to gamble with the only safety net we have." He rolled his eyes. "You know what?" he said. "Forget it. Keep your little stash. I'll figure something else out. I always do." He slammed the laptop shut, got up, and went to the bedroom without another word. Keziah sat still, her heart pounding, staring at the empty doorway. A year ago, a conversation like that would have ended with an apology, a hug, a promise to find a compromise. Now, it just ended with doors closing. She stayed up until almost 1 a.m, finishing the report. By the time she crawled into bed, Tavares was already snoring softly, turned as far away from her as he could get. She lay awake staring at the shadow of the ceiling fan on the wall. How did we get here? She wondered. And how much farther down is there to go? The weeks passed in the same exhausting rhythm. Clinic, Groceries, bookkeeping, dishes, arguments that started small and ended with Tavarius calling her negative and limiting. Valentine's Day came and went, marked only by a half-wilted convenience store bouquet he brought home at midnight and dropped on the table with a muttered, "Here." Her birthday came. He forgot until her mother called to sing happy birthday on speaker. He laughed it off, kissed her cheek, promised to make it up to her. He never did. Then, in late March, something shifted. It was a Wednesday evening. Keziah was sitting at the desk, squinting at a spreadsheet, when she heard Tavarius in the living room shout, "No freaking way!" He hardly ever shouted with joy anymore. Usually it was out of frustration at the Wi-Fi, at his lazy partners, at the world. This sound was different. She turned in her chair. "What happened?" she called. He was staring at his phone, eyes wide, a slow grin spreading across his face. Then he jumped to his feet, nearly tripping over the coffee table. "Kez," he shouted. "Yo, you are not going to believe this." He rushed into the little office nook, waving his phone like a trophy. "My uncle died," he announced. Keziah blinked. "I what?" she stammered. "I'm sorry?" He shook his head impatiently. No, not the broke one," he said. "Uncle Lionel, the one in Houston, the one with the trucks. Remember? He used to send me sneakers when I was a kid." She vaguely remembered photos of a tall, broad-shouldered man with a gold watch and a booming laugh. "Yes," she said slowly. "What about him?" "He passed last week," Tavarius said, almost bouncing. "But that's not the crazy part. Listen to this." He thrust the phone at her. It was an email from a law firm in Texas. "Dear Mr. Barnes, we are reaching out regarding the estate of the late Lionel J. Barnes. You are listed as a beneficiary in his last will and testament. It is imperative that we speak with you regarding matters of inheritance. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience." Keziah read it twice. "Beneficiary?" she whispered. "What does that mean? How much?" Tavarius snatched the phone back. "I don't know yet," he said, eyes shining. "But you remember what Mom said, right?" Lionel had 3 trucks, some land out near Katy, and one of those old houses he rented out. "If I'm in the will—" He trailed off, grinning. "If you're in the will," Keziah finished slowly, "it could be something. A little help. Enough to pay off some debt, fix the car, maybe—" He laughed, short and sharp. "Little?" he repeated. "Girl, this could be everything. This could be the reset. We've been waiting on a break, and this is it." Something fluttered weakly in her chest. Hope. Dangerous, fragile hope. "Or it could be a few thousand," she said carefully. "You don't know yet. We shouldn't—" "You always do this," he snapped. "Always putting limits. Always shrinking the moment. Why can't you just be happy for us? For me?" She bit her tongue. "I am happy for you," she said. "I just don't want you to quit reality before we even know what we're dealing with." He shook his head and paced the room. "Man, you don't get it," he said. "If this is big, we're done with this struggle. No more buses, no more clocking in for people. I can finally invest real money into my ideas. I can finally be who I'm meant to be. I can finally. Not we." She noticed it, filed it away, said nothing. After that, Tavarius changed. Not gradually. Overnight. He stopped talking about getting a part-time job just until the business takes off. When she suggested he at least apply somewhere while they waited to hear from the lawyers, he laughed. "What, you want me to go back to folding shirts at the mall when I'm about to be an heir?" he said. "You're wild." He stayed up late watching videos about luxury cars, real estate investing, private jets. He made grand speeches about the houses he was going to buy, the businesses he'd launch, the way people would finally respect his grind. He stopped asking how much was in their emergency fund. He started asking instead, "What kind of watch do you think looks good on a man with money?" Keziah watched all of it with growing unease. "Babe," she said one night as he showed her another sprawling Houston mansion on his phone, "maybe we should wait until you actually talk to the lawyers before you start spending money in your head." He rolled his eyes. "There you go again," he said. Negativity, lack mindset. That's why you're stuck on that receptionist salary. You can't even picture God blessing you. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was no point arguing with someone who thought prudence was an insult. 2 weeks later, the law firm scheduled a video call. Keziah took a half-day off work to be there. Tavarius insisted she sit beside him on the couch, though he made it clear this was his moment. The attorney, a middle-aged woman with glasses and a no-nonsense expression, appeared on the screen. After verifying Tavarius's identity, she began. "Your Uncle Lionel named you as one of his heirs," she said. "As you may know, he ran a small trucking company and owned several assets at the time of his passing." Keziah leaned forward. "So," Tavarius said, trying to sound casual, "what does that look like?" The attorney glanced at her notes. "After debts, taxes, and obligations, the net estate amounts to approximately $1.2 million, she said. Keziah's breath caught. "1 point," she began, eyes wide. "Million," the lawyer repeated. "He designated 50% of the estate to be divided among his 3 children. The remaining 50% is divided between 2 nephews, yourself and your cousin, Marvin Jones." Tavarius's jaw went slack. "So that means," he stammered. "After calculations," the lawyer continued, "your share amounts to approximately $300,000 before any fees or additional taxes." For a moment, the apartment was dead silent. Then Tavarius exploded. "$300,000, he whispered, then laughed, then shouted. $300,000! Yo, Kez, do you hear this? Do you hear this? Keziah could barely process it. 300,000. It was more than she made in 10 years at the clinic, more than she had ever dared to imagine holding at once. She turned to the screen. "We're very grateful," she said, her voice shaky. "Lionel was very generous." The lawyer nodded. "There will be paperwork to sign," she said. "We'll need to coordinate with you regarding distribution. It can be wired directly into your account within a few weeks once everything is processed." "Wire it," Tavarius said quickly. "Straight to me. I'll send the details." Keziah glanced at him. "Maybe we should talk to a financial advisor first," she said carefully, "or at least open a separate account just for—" "I got it," he said, waving her off. "I've been studying this stuff. I know what to do." The call ended. As soon as the screen went dark, Tavarius jumped up and whooped, dancing around the coffee table. "I told you," he shouted. "Didn't I tell you? I told you God had a plan. I told you the grind was going to pay off. I'm a rich man now." Keziah stood slowly. "Tav," she began. He grabbed her by the waist, spinning her clumsily. 300,000, he crowed. "We're out the hood, girl. New car, new house, new everything. I don't gotta listen to nobody no more." She laughed weakly, dizzy from the spinning. "Can we at least pay off the credit cards first?" she asked. "The rent's due next week, and my student loans—" "Student loans?" he scoffed, dropping his hands. "You thinking about bills when I'm thinking about building an empire? That's the difference between us." Something in his tone made her flinch. "Between us?" she repeated. He missed it. He was already pacing, gesturing, talking to himself. "First, I'm getting a car that doesn't sound like it's dying every time I turn the key," he said. "Then we're out of this joke of an apartment. I'm done living in the South Side like a nobody. I'm going to be that dude now. People will know my name." Keziah watched him, a strange unease filling her. For 5 years she had dreamed of stability, of a little house with a yard, of a working washing machine, a car that never broke down, of not counting every single dollar at the end of the month. But the way Tavarius talked now, he wasn't dreaming of stability. He was dreaming of power, of status, of finally not having to answer to anyone even, she realized with a chill, to her. "Tav," she said quietly, "we should sit down and plan together. This affects both of us. Maybe we can meet with a planner at the bank, or talk to my dad. He knows some people." He stopped pacing and turned to her. The look in his eyes was unfamiliar, cold at the edges. "See," he said slowly, That's the thing, Kez. He shoved his hands into the pockets of his sweatpants and leaned against the wall, head tilted. Up until now, it's been your show, he said. Your job, your schedules, your "we gotta tighten the belt" Tav. I was the guy with ideas and no capital. You were the serious one. He smiled without humor. But now, he continued, now the money's coming to me. My name, my bloodline. This is my chance to finally live like I want. Keziah's mouth went dry. Like, we want, she corrected softly. He shrugged. Sure, he said. If you don't fight me every step of the way, if you can get on my level. He pushed off the wall and walked toward the bedroom. Oh, he tossed over his shoulder. Start packing, by the way. She blinked. Packing, she repeated. Already? Where are we going? Did you find a place? He turned in the doorway and looked at her with that new, unfamiliar gaze. Pack your bags, he said slowly, as if savoring each word. Because one way or another, I'm not living this broke life anymore. I'm a rich man now, Keziah. Something icy slithered down her spine. Are you joking? She whispered. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You'll see, he said. Once that money hits, everything changes. He disappeared into the bedroom, humming to himself. Keziah stood alone in the living room, the faded rug under her feet, the second-hand couch sagging behind her, the buzzing refrigerator filling the silence. For years, she had dreamed of a miracle. She just never imagined that when the miracle finally came, it would be the very thing that threatened to destroy everything else. For weeks it did. The moment word of the inheritance got around the neighborhood, Tavarius changed completely. He stopped pretending. He quit even the little side gigs he had, announcing, I'm not wasting my genius on chump change anymore. He slept late, stayed up all night watching videos about high-value men, scrolling through car sites and luxury watch forums, talking to anyone who would listen about his portfolio and his upcoming wealth transfer. The money hadn't hit yet, but in his head, he was already gone. Keziah tried to keep things together. She still got up at 5:30, still caught the same bus, still came home with aching feet and bags of groceries. She kept paying the rent, the light bill, the internet, because despite all the big talk, nothing concrete had changed, except him. One evening, a few days after the call with the lawyer, she came home to find him sprawled on the sofa, watching videos of men popping champagne on yachts. Hey, she said softly, dropping her keys in the bowl. You eat? He didn't look up. Grabbed pizza, he muttered. You can have what's left. There was a greasy box on the coffee table with one shriveled slice in it. She exhaled. I was thinking, she began carefully, once the inheritance comes, we could sit down together and make a list. Maybe pay off the debt first, put some away, and then... He hit pause on the video and finally turned his head. His eyes were different, harder. See, that's the thing, he said. You keep saying we like this money is ours. Keziah froze. We're married, she said slowly. Your uncle's blessing helps both of us. That's how marriage works. He sat up, resting his elbows on his knees, looking at her with an almost bored expression. Legally, he said, inheritance is separate property. It's mine. That's how law works. The words landed like a slap. So that's how you see it, she whispered. I see it, he said, shrugging, as God finally blessing me after all these broke years, and I'm not letting anybody, your fear, your small mindset, your 9-to-5 brain mess that up. Her throat tightened. I've been the one holding this house together, she said quietly. My 9-to-5 brain is what kept the lights on while you chased ideas. I never threw that in your face. He stood. And I appreciate that. Really, he said. But it's a new season now. I gotta think about what's best for me. There it was again. That tiny word sharp as a knife. The money hit faster than she expected. 2.5 weeks later, an email notification popped up on his phone. Incoming wire 298 $472.16 after fees and taxes. From that moment, Tavarius became unbearable. He went straight to the dealership and bought a brand new SUV, all black with leather seats and a sound system so loud it rattled the windows. He came home grinning, tossing her the keys for a second before snatching them back. "You like it?" he asked. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "But did you really have to buy it today? We didn't talk about anything," he interrupted. "You talked. I've decided." He started going out more. Networking, he called it. In reality, he was popping bottles in clubs with guys who suddenly started calling him Big Bro. He bought designer sneakers, a watch that cost more than their old car, and new clothes. He talked about moving somewhere worthy of his new status. Meanwhile, the rent notice still sat on the table. Her student loan account still showed the same depressing balance. One Friday evening, Keziah came home from the clinic exhausted, her shoulders tense from a day of short staffing and doubled appointments. She walked in to find a suitcase in the hallway. Not his, hers. Her heart stuttered. "Tav," she called. He stepped out of the bedroom wearing a crisp new shirt, a thin gold chain glinting at his neck. He smelled like expensive cologne, the kind they advertised in glossy magazines. "Hey," he said. No smile. Keziah stared at the suitcase. "What's this?" she asked slowly. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he picked up an envelope from the coffee table and held it out to her. "Read," he said. Her fingers trembled as she slid the papers out. Legal language, headings, her name, his. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her ears started ringing. "What is this?" she whispered. "It's what it looks like," he said. "I filed for divorce." The words didn't make sense at first. They crashed into each other, loud and flat. "You filed what?" she choked. He exhaled loudly as if she were being unreasonable. "Look," he said, "we both know this hasn't been working for a long time. You and your worrying, me and my vision. It's not compatible. Before, we were stuck together by circumstances. Now I've got options." "Options," she repeated faintly. "I'm moving into a condo downtown next week," he said, "closer to where things are happening. New people, new opportunities. You can go back to your parents or get a roommate. I don't know. You're resourceful." Keziah stared at him. The man who once made coffee for her at dawn, now talking like she was an intern he was letting go. "So that's it," she whispered. "After 5 years of me holding this together, you get money and I become disposable?" He shifted, clearly uncomfortable for a second, then hardened. "Don't make this emotional," he said. "I'm doing what's right for me. I don't need anyone dragging me down anymore. I don't need you." The last sentence hit her harder than anything. He saw it, but he didn't soften. He pointed at the suitcase. "I already packed some of your stuff," he said. "Your clothes, your laptop, your important papers. The rest you can come get later. We can make an appointment or something." "An appointment," she repeated, half laughing, half crying. "Yeah, and look, the divorce papers are straightforward," he went on quickly. "Since the inheritance is separate, we each keep what's in our names. You don't owe me anything, I don't owe you anything. Clean break." "Our names?" she said, something inside her finally snapping. "Everything is in your name or the landlord's name because we decided it that way to help your business credit. Every spare dollar I had went into paying for your ideas. We have nothing because I spent it trying to build you." He shrugged. "And I appreciate that, honestly. But it is what it is. The law is the law. If you want, I can throw you 5-10 grand to help you get settled. A little thank you." A little thank you. Like she was a babysitter he was overpaying. Something in Keziah went very still. She looked down at the divorce papers again. The numbers, the boxes checked. No spousal support, no division of assets. Just each party keeps what they have. What do I have, she thought. A strained back, a tired soul, and a husband who had just shown her exactly how much or how little she meant to him. She lifted her gaze slowly. "You're sure this is what you want?" she asked. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, too calm, too clear. He mistook it for surrender. Yes, he said, relieved. This is the cleanest way. No drama. You sign, we wait the processing time, we go our separate ways. You'll thank me later. He pushed a pen toward her. For a moment, she just looked at it. Then she thought of the years she had spent begging him to get a job, of the nights she'd stayed up doing bookkeeping so he could invest, of his laugh when she reminded him about the rent, of the way he said me since the inheritance came. Something in her chest unclenched. Without another word, she picked up the pen and signed where the sticky tabs instructed. He blinked. That's it? He asked. No tears? No threats? She placed the pen down carefully. You said you don't need me anymore, she said. I believe you. She closed the folder and slid it back across the table. I won't fight you for a man who just kicked me out like yesterday's mail. He stared at her, thrown off by her composure. You can stay with your moms for now, he mumbled, or your cousin, or whatever. You'll land on your feet. You always do. She picked up the suitcase handle. You're right, she said quietly. I will. She walked to the door. His voice followed her. No hard feelings, aight? He said. She paused with her hand on the doorknob. I don't hate you, she said without turning around. I just finally see you. Then she stepped into the hallway and closed the door. The weeks that followed were a blur. She moved into her parents' spare room on the north side. The commute to the clinic was longer, but the warmth of the house, her mother's cooking, her father's quiet presence, wrapped around the raw edges of her heart like a bandage. Her mother cursed Tavarius every time his name came up. Her father said little, but the one time she broke down sobbing in the kitchen, he just held her and said, Sometimes God lets people leave right before he blesses you, so they don't spend your blessing. She wanted to believe that, but right then, it just felt like loss. The divorce process moved fast, with no shared assets on paper, and Tavarius suddenly very eager to close the chapter. His lawyer pushed the paperwork aggressively. Keziah hired a modest attorney recommended by a coworker. The woman listened, frowned, glanced over the documents and said, We could fight for more, given your contributions, but that would take time and money you may not want to spend. Is it worth it? Keziah thought of nights under fluorescent clinic lights, of bags of groceries digging into her fingers, of his words, I don't need you anymore. She exhaled. No, she said. It's not. Are you sure? The attorney pressed. Once this is done? I'm sure, Keziah interrupted. I don't want a single dollar that requires me to stay tied to him. So she signed again, calmly. No scenes, no screaming voicemails, no dragging him on social media. She let him walk away with his shiny new SUV, his designer sneakers, his I'm a rich man now swagger. But destiny, as the channel promised, has twists of its own. A month after she moved back in with her parents, Keziah got a call at the clinic during her lunch break. Is this Mrs. Keziah Barnes? A female voice asked. There was a small pause. Legally, yes, Keziah said. For now. This is Attorney Morales from Houston, the woman said. We spoke briefly during your husband's inheritance process, but I understand a lot has changed since then. Keziah's stomach tightened. Yes, she said cautiously. We separated. The divorce is being finalized. I see, Morales said. Well, I'm calling because we're doing the final reading of the will in person next week. There is also a Codicil AF handwritten amendment that specifically mentions you. It is important that you attend. Me? Keziah blinked. Why me? I thought everything was going to Tavarius and his cousins. That's what he assumed, the lawyer said dryly. But your late uncle-in-law was more perceptive than your ex-husband gave him credit for. Can you travel to Houston next Friday? Keziah hesitated. Money was tight. She'd been rebuilding slowly, taking extra bookkeeping clients again, but her father, when she told him, didn't hesitate. I'll pay for the ticket, he said. If that man left anything in your name, even if it's just peace of mind, you're going to hear it with your own ears." The law firm in downtown Houston was all glass and polished steel, with a reception desk that looked more like an art installation than a place to check in. Keziah walked in wearing her best navy blazer and the only good pair of heels she hadn't ruined on icy sidewalks. Her stomach was a knot, but her face was composed. When she stepped into the conference room, Tavarius was already there. He was dressed to impress in a tailored suit, a little too flashy for the setting, gold watch gleaming, hair freshly lined up. Beside him sat a man who looked like a slightly older, heavier version, his cousin Marvin. Tavarius's expression flickered when he saw her. "Kez," he said, standing halfway, then thinking better of it, "you came." "The lawyer said my name is in the will," she replied, taking a seat on the opposite side of the long table. "I'm here to listen." He shifted, adjusting his cufflink. "Look, about everything that happened," he began in a low voice. "We were in a weird place. You know I got love for you. Maybe after this we can—" The door opened. Attorney Morales walked in with a thick file and a neutral expression. "Good afternoon," she said. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to finalize the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. Lionel J. Barnes and its amendments." They all fell silent. She went through the formalities first, confirming identities, summarizing what they already knew, the total estate value, the division of assets, the shares allocated to Lionel's children and to Marvin. Marvin perked up when she confirmed his portion, about $150,000 plus a stake in one of the trucks. Then Morales turned a page. "Now," she said, "we come to the share originally designated to Mr. Tavarius Barnes." Tavarius leaned back, folding his hands behind his head, trying to look relaxed. "As we discussed in our first meeting," Morales continued, "the initial will divided 50% of the estate between the nephews, which would have given Mr. Barnes approximately $300,000. "That's right," Tavarius said with a grin. "Already received, baby." Keziah frowned. "You already got the money?" she asked. "Partial distribution," Morales said without looking up. "Subject to final adjustment today once the codicil is applied." Tavarius's smile faltered. "The what?" he asked. "The codicil," Morales repeated. Roughly 6 months before his death, Mr. Barnes executed a handwritten amendment to his will, properly witnessed and certified. He did not inform you of this because, in his words— She glanced down, then read aloud, "If that boy knows about this beforehand, he'll mess it up." Marvin coughed to hide a laugh. Morales continued. "I'll read the relevant portion," she said. Quote, "To my nephew Tavarius, you are blood and I love you, but I have eyes. I know you like big talk and shortcuts. I also know who's been keeping a roof over your head while you work on your dreams. If by the time this will is read, you are still married to Keziah and living with her as a faithful husband, you will receive your full share as planned, under her supervision. However, if you have divorced her, put her out, or otherwise failed to honor her support, then I direct that the remainder of what would have been your share be given to her instead, outright and in full. You will then receive only a monthly stipend of $500 for 3 years, so you don't starve completely while you figure out how to stand on your own 2 feet. Morales looked up. The room was so quiet you could hear the humming of the fluorescent lights. Tavarius's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Wait," he croaked. "What does that mean? We were married. When he died, we were married." "Yes," Morales agreed. "But the codicil refers specifically to your status at the time the will is read and whether you have divorced her or put her out." She turned a page and slid a paper toward him. "According to the records," she said, "you filed for divorce 34 days ago, and Ms. Barnes signed the dissolution agreement 28 days ago. You have also changed your address of record, and Ms. Barnes is no longer residing in the marital apartment." Color drained from his face. "Those are just technicalities," he stammered. "We were working things out." I was going to— Mr. Barnes, Morales said calmly, from a legal standpoint, those are not technicalities. They are actions that show you have, in fact, divorced her and put her out of the place where you live together. She folded her hands. Therefore, under the explicit terms of the codicil, the remainder of your share passes to your former spouse, Mrs. Keziah Barnes. She turned to Keziah. As of this moment, she said, you are the lawful beneficiary of approximately $214,000, the undistributed balance of what was earmarked for Mr. Barnes, minus the monthly stipend that will remain allocated to him. Keziah blinked. What? She whispered. Morales slid a separate document toward her. This account will be set up in your name only, she said. You can choose lump sum or structured disbursements. Mr. Barnes, she added, turning back to Tavarius, based on the codicil, you will receive the equivalent of $500 per month for 36 months. Those distributions are conditional on you not harassing or attempting to defraud Mrs. Barnes. Any such behavior, documented and presented to the court, will result in the termination of your stipend. Marvin let out a low whistle. Oh, cousin, he muttered, you done fumbled a cosmic bag. Tavarius didn't move. He just stared at the lawyer. Then slowly, as if he'd been unplugged, he turned his head toward Keziah. The swagger was gone. The smirk was gone. In their place was naked, desperate disbelief. Kez, he said hoarsely, baby, you're not going to let them do this, right? You're not taking my money. She looked at him, and in that moment 1,000 images flashed through her mind. His face half asleep 5 years ago, pressing coffee into her hands before her morning shift. His laughter when they painted the living room and stained the floor. His eyes when he told her, not long ago, I don't need you anymore. I'm rich now. Her hand tightening on the pen as she signed the divorce papers, the suitcase in the hallway, the sound of the door closing behind her. She inhaled slowly. I'm not taking anything, she said quietly. Your uncle made his decision. He saw what I was doing for you. He also saw what you were doing to me. Tavarius pushed back his chair so fast it screeched. He dropped to his knees right there on the polished floor, not caring how it looked. Keziah, please, he begged. Listen, I was tripping, okay? I was hyped. I said some stupid things. I can fix it. We can go back to court, say we were reconciling, withdraw the divorce. Even if you did, Morales interjected calmly, it would not retroactively change the fact that at the time of the reading, you had already divorced and moved out. The codicil is clear. There is no clause for I changed my mind. He ignored her, grabbing the edge of the table, eyes glued to Keziah. You know me, he said, voice cracking. You know my heart. You know I just wanted to finally feel like a man, like I could provide. I got lost in it, okay? But you can't just leave me with nothing. We've been together too long. Keziah looked down at him. The man who had told her to pack her bags was now on his knees, asking her to unpack his consequences. She felt a pang not of love, but of something like mourning for the version of him she had once believed in. Then she heard Lionel's words again in her mind, as if he were in the room. I also know who's been keeping a roof over your head while you work on your dreams. She straightened. Tavarius, she said softly, you said you didn't need me. You made that very clear. You packed my bag. You filed those papers. You chose your money over our marriage before you even held it in your hands. Tears pricked his eyes. I was wrong, he whispered. I need you. I swear I do. Just don't take this from me. Please, we can start over. You and me, like before. I'll even put the money in both our names. She shook her head gently. No, she said. You were right the first time. He froze. What? He croaked. You didn't need me, she said. At least not enough to treat me with respect. You needed me to carry you, to bankroll you, to clean up after you, to endure. But that's not love, and I'm done mistaking it for love. She slid the newly prepared beneficiary form toward herself. I'm not going to fight your uncle's last wish, she added. For once, life is paying me back for all the nights I cried into a pillow so you could sleep. She picked up the pen. Mrs. Barnes, Morales said quietly, you're not obligated to accept, but if you do, this can be a new start for you. Keziah thought of early mornings catching icy buses, of her father's words in the kitchen, of the way her mother's shoulders tensed every time Tavarius's name came up. She thought of freedom. Then she signed. Slow, steady, no shaking. When she finished, she slid the form back to Morales and finally looked at Tavarius again. There are hard feelings, she said honestly. I won't pretend there aren't, but I don't hate you. I hope one day you grow into the man your uncle believed you could be. She stood. But I will not bankrupt my future trying to rescue a man who threw me out the minute he saw money. Tavarius bowed his head, his shoulders shaking. Kez, he choked. She turned toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back one last time. He was still kneeling on the floor, watch gleaming uselessly on his wrist, all his imagined power crumbling in the face of a few sentences in a dead man's handwriting. I used to pray for a miracle, she said quietly. I thought that meant God fixing you. Maybe it meant God removing you. Then she stepped out into the hallway. Back in her modest guest room at her parents' house that night, Keziah lay on the small bed, staring at the ceiling, not at a fan this time, but at a simple white plaster. The number Morales had shown her sat in her mind like a bright, steady light. $200,000. Enough to pay off her student loans, wipe out every credit card, build a real emergency fund, and still have something left to invest, carefully, wisely, on her own terms. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text. Unknown. Keziah. It's me. Please. Can we talk? She stared at it. Then gently, she put the phone face down. No anger. No thrill. Just peace. Outside the window, dawn was still a long way off. But somewhere inside her, the sun was finally rising. Her husband had kicked her out, told her he didn't need her now that he was rich. He'd been wrong. He needed her character, her work, her stability. Without those, his money was sand in his hands. She, on the other hand, had discovered something she'd forgotten along the way. She was her own safest investment. And this time, when destiny twisted in her favor, she was ready to hold on.